Gimbals, gimbals, gimbals. They're a great versatile piece of filmmaking equipment, but they can be fairly expensive. Today I'm reviewing the FiyoTech AK2000, which is a very simple gimbal that comes at a price point of $280. But how good is it? Let's talk about it. When you get the FiyoTech AK2000, it comes in this foam case in which we open up. Everything is nicely seated inside. We have our camera gimbal, the stand, the batteries, the quick release plates, and we have a couple of different cables inside to connect to your camera. However, I don't really use those. So let's get the gimbal up and running. One thing I don't like about this case is the fact that you have to completely loosen up the gimbal before you pack it away. That means you have to rebalance your camera if you are taking it on the go. For instance, I was shooting a wedding and I typically like to set up everything beforehand, but when I'm traveling with this, I have to completely unbalance the camera and to pack it away. So then when I arrived at the wedding, I had to rebalance the camera, which took extra time. I could have been just filming other stuff. So that is one con I have with this case in particular. So with that out of the way, we have the gimbal itself, and it is lightweight compared to other gimbals I've used, which is awesome. When you're using a lighter weight camera, this makes it much more ideal. But the really crazy thing is it has a really good payload. So you can fit a heavy lens like the Sigma 18-35 and your camera, and it will balance, and I'll show you how you can do that. So it's first we need to install the batteries. Over here we have our little cap, which we unscrew. And here we open this up and we can insert the batteries. And it'll tell you which direction you need to do that for. Then you kind of push down, and it's a little awkward when you're trying to kind of close it. You kind of have to move this tab back, and then it'll finally close, so it's a little awkward there. But then we can screw this back on, and we have a 1/4-20, which we can attach this onto a tripod or boom pole if we want to. But most often I use these legs, and these are a really nice pair of tripod legs here. So for one, you can operate the camera like this. You can have an extra grip at the bottom, makes it a little bit easier to operate, or you can leave them flipped out and set it down like so. And it comes with your quick release plate, so you can kind of attach this pen through here, and then this is what you mount your camera to, and then that goes on there. However, I prefer to use my own quick release plates, so I have a set of Manfrotto plates that work on my tripod, my glide cam, whatever I really need to have. So I have these here. I'll link to the quick release plates I use. It comes with a quick release itself, and then 2 additional plates for about $17. And the great thing is it works on this gimbal. So let's try to throw the camera on now. And we are going to balance the Canon 70D with the Sigma 18-35. And I mounted my quick release plates that way. It's more forward since most of the weight is with the lens. So to attach it, all we gotta do is swing this down here, and there's a little arrow which we can see, which means we need to mount it backwards like so. And the first adjustment which we're going to focus on is the tilt axis here. So feel for if your camera's drooping down or staying right. You want to keep it balanced where it's not going to really move too much. Get it close and then just lock it down. I will say with these quick release plates that I own, the lock feature doesn't close all the way back, but it does feel very secure, so I don't really mind, or I'm not really worried about that. The second adjustment which we need to do is the top heaviness of it. So we need to make sure that this part here stays right. So to do that, we need to tilt the camera backwards, and as you can see, it droops very quickly. So we're going to unloosen this, and we can slide this back and forth. Keep the camera pointed up like so, and then just keep testing how heavy it is. So right there, it's kind of staying right where I want it. I'm gonna lock this down. And that might throw off your tilt when you come back down here. So to do that, we need to unlock this and find that balance. So as you can see, when we drop the camera, it kind of just droops down like so. So we need to control this axis right here. So to do that, we're going to move the arm like so until we can kind of get it where it just stays still. Pretty close. Looks like I need to adjust this again. And so now when I were to move the camera, it kind of just stays put right where I need it to be. No matter which way, it just stays put, and it's pretty much balanced. It's okay if it's a little off because the motors are going to compensate and try to balance it. But of course, the closer you can get it to be like this, the better off your balance will be. And of course, better battery life since the motors are not working as hard. Also, you want to make sure you want to have your camera balanced to how you're going to use it. So make sure you have a battery, you have an SD card in your camera, and of course, flip out that screen if you need to. So as you can see, that throws off the balance, but we can easily fix that by just moving this arm back. And there we go, we have it balanced. So what we need to do is let's turn on the camera and we'll turn on the gimbal. And to do that, there is a power button, which we're gonna press and hold. Makes a nice chime noise, and now the camera gimbal is on, and now it's essentially balancing the camera, so I can take it, move it however I want, and it is staying balanced. It's keeping the horizon straight, it's keeping everything very smooth. The other thing I really like about this gimbal is right out of the box, I don't really need to do much adjusting. It feels very intuitive. How I move with the camera, it feels just the right amount of speed. It doesn't feel too quick and it doesn't lag too far behind. So great part on Fiotech's part. So now that we have the camera balanced, it is ready to go. You can film like this if you want to, or if you feel like getting really low to the ground, you can just spin the gimbal and it'll go into a low view. Very simple and quickly. So this is great when you're trying to get those low angles, which on a glide cam is harder to do. It doesn't feel as balanced as a gimbal when you're going to low mode. It feels like you have a lot more control with that. And if you want to go top view, you just kind of swing it back up. It takes a little bit of getting used to because it can get flip-flopped. So for instance, if I'm trying to go there, that bottom part can kind of go towards the lens. So you just gotta kind of learn how to operate your gimbal so that doesn't happen. So in order to fix that, you can just kind of hold the gimbal. It'll kind of spin on you a little bit, but then you can reset it there. And the more you use it, you can kind of just quickly go into low view and then top view, very simply. So to go over some of the buttons and features with the gimbal itself, we first have this little touchscreen, which is very nice to see. So we can basically control the different modes, which we can toggle through here, which we'll get to in a second. I'm not sure what that is actually. We can toggle this, which will control the different pans. So when I move this knob, it will control the pan, the roll, and the tilt with this knob here. Fiotech sells an additional focus unit, which can be controlled with this knob right here, making pulling focus extremely easy, which would be an awesome thing to have with this gimbal. Up here we have our battery life, so we can see it's fully charged. We can connect with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to the camera. I've briefly tested that, but I don't find that useful, so I stopped using it. On the front we have a joystick here, so we can control the different pans and tilts and do it very smoothly. So if we want to do a manual adjustment, or if you're trying to track someone but you're not quite there, you have that adjustment. And let's say that your camera gimbal is way off and you want to recenter quickly. All you gotta do is pull the trigger twice and it will reset it for you, which is always handy to have. Next to the joystick, we have 4 different buttons we can use if we connect our camera to the gimbal, and you can do that with this jack at the back that plugs into the camera. There's also a USB, which we can power up that unit there. However, most of these buttons are not working since I don't really use that feature. So I just control all the settings I want to on the camera, and then I just operate the gimbal. It's by far the easiest and the simplest to me. And on the side here, we actually have a lock feature. So it locks the touchscreen so you're not going to change any of the settings. Let's dive into the menus a little bit here. We first have a few different modes which we can toggle on and off. HF is most of our basic needs here. It's going to kind of keep the tilt locked down here, but we can pan and we can tilt and function like so. We also have the TF mode, which will also do the same thing as HF, but it will also follow with pans as well, which is very nice. Toggle that to AF. This is all follow mode, which allows you to control the roll as well, which is by far very creative. I filmed this with the wedding as well, and during the dancing, it was nice just to be able to get that little rolling movement, just to try something new and unique. And the last one is lock mode. So now it's going to try to keep everything very straight, very centered. So no matter where I move it, it's going to kind of keep it there. By far the mode I typically use is just HF. So I can just kind of have it where I want it, and it's going to kind of keep everything simple and easy to use. If you want to customize your gimbal, you can swipe to the right and you have various settings to look at. You have payload settings, so it shows you how much weight is on your gimbal and you can customize that. So if you have a heavier system and you need to do a little fine tuning, well, you have that there. Capture mode, you have default, smooth, and action. So these are different levels of smoothness. If you go to smooth, it'll do it even slower and more subtly. And if you do action, it's going to quickly allow you to whip around. This is good for sports or music videos where you need a faster movement. But I really like default. I think it's a great combination just to have it be very intuitive. The last feature I really want to show you is just calibration. So when you have a new setup, you can calibrate the gimbal if you come across any issues. It's going to calibrate and it's going to tell you it's done like so. And this just keeps the gimbal healthily balanced. The motors shouldn't overwork themselves too much. As long as you have it balanced on the weight pretty well, it will do the rest. And if you do want to control your gimbal, you can actually control it with the ISO, the exposure, and white balance from here. So that's pretty nice. Like I said, I don't really use it. And that's it for the gimbal operation. It's very simple, and I think that's a good part on Valuetech's part. Their market is for people who are getting into filmmaking, don't want to spend a huge amount on a gimbal, but want to up their video game. Having too many features and different stuff can kind of get in the way. So having it very simple, and also a lot of settings you can do with the gimbal itself rather than relying on their app, which they do have. It's great, but I don't really like to use apps at all. If I can control it on the gimbal itself, allows me to just get the shot quicker. I don't have to pull out my phone, try to get it all sorted out. This is by far easier. Those who are looking at getting their first gimbal, I'd recommend this one. It has great all-day battery life, very simple and easy to use, and the results are really smooth, and I hope you agree with that. They also have different versions out there and different accessories for this as well. They sell a focus unit as well as a fig rig kind of scenario, which you can attach the handle on the side, and that's by far a more comfortable, easy way to use the gimbal. My buddy TLDR Filmmaker has this whole video talking about that configuration and how well that works for action and narrative films. This is just its bare essentials, just the gimbal itself, but it works really well. If you are looking for a great low budget option to be your first gimbal, I recommend the Valuetech AK2000. There's a lot of good gimbals out there, but this is very simple, easy to use, great all-day battery life, and it comes at a really great price point. If you like this type of filmmaking content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have gear reviews, I have filmmaking tutorials coming out every week, so be sure to subscribe if you want to learn more. Thanks for watching.